Okay, as two students, okay, so today we're going to continue our topic on the food problem. So last time, I have already introduced like the food problems, okay, in the world. For example, when we will face the food problem, such as when the demand for food of a place that is much larger than the supply, okay. So therefore, we may face the problem of food shortage. If the food shortage problem it lasts for a long time, that may cause the problem of famine. However, like in Hong Kong, we know that the demand for food actually that is very large. On the other hand, the supply of food, okay, or the local production of the food in Hong Kong that is just very, very small. So therefore, how can we fulfill, how can we satisfy the huge food demand, okay? So we import food from overseas. And today, what would be the topic? Topic that is like how do we farm? How do we produce food? Okay, how do we get food from a natural environment? So therefore, today we're going to focus on the topic of farming. Okay, so if you have your textbook, you may prepare it and turn to the unit 3.2. Okay, so today we're going to focus like how do we farm? For farming process, I know that actually that is not a very, very common practice, especially like in the urban area. Okay, so therefore, I know that many of you, you may not be very familiar with like the process of farming. So therefore, today I'm going to explain like what is farming. Okay, so for what is farming, you may have a look on the next page. Okay, so farming actually, so it means we may divide like farming into two parts. Okay, one part that is growing of crops, growing of crops. Okay, farming include like the growing of crops. So we get the crops, okay, from the land, and then another rearing of livestock. Okay, we raise the animals. Okay, we rear the livestock, and the process and the activities we may also call it like agriculture, 農業啦. Okay, so therefore, right now, what could be like some example of the crops? Okay, so that could be like some vegetables. So you can see in figure A. Okay, so you can see all these that would be like the crops. Okay, from farming, such as in this photo you can see kiwi. You can see the pepper, you can see grape, you can see apple, okay, you can see a pea, you can see ginger, okay, all this that would be like the crops that grown from the land, okay, from the activities of farming. Okay, and then the next one, livestock rearing, okay, rearing of livestock. Okay, so from photos C and also photo B, okay, so you can also see the example or the farm produce, okay, so of the livestock rearing, okay, of the livestock rearing. Like in C, B first. So indeed, you can see the meat, okay? So it could be like from pig or pork, okay? So that would be pork. And then C, you can see the animal here that would be shipped. And the farm produce that would be the wool, okay? So therefore, let's have a look. So what would be livestock? Okay, so you may write down some example. So normally we would say like crowd, pig, goat, sheep, uh, chicken, horse, camel, goose, duck, all this that would be like the livestock. Okay, so remember. So for other animals, for example, like cat or dogs, okay, so normally we won't call this livestock. It is because like dog and also cat, so that is not the food, okay, for people. Okay, so let's continue. So just now on the photos, so all this, that is what we call like the farm produce. So they are mainly used as food for people or sometimes raw material for industry. So an example of the raw material, okay, just now, okay, in photo C, you can see that like wool. Okay, so it could be like a raw material. And then let me give you more examples of the raw material, especially for the industry that would be like from farming. Okay, the first one, rubber. Okay, so actually, rubber that would be grown from trees, from the rubber tree. For example, like this. Okay, so you can see that that would be the rubber tree. Okay, like this photo. Like this photo. Okay, so this is a rubber tree, and you can see the droplet here. Okay, so the liquid here in right, so that would be the rubber. So therefore, all this farm, we may call it like a tree plantation. So that is the growing of trees only, and we would get the materials, okay, so from the trees. So this one, that would be rubber tree, okay, so that is rubber tree plantation. And okay, so if there's more photo, like this, okay. Remember that is not like that is not milk, okay? So that is rubber, okay, from the tree. For example, the type, okay, of the vehicles, okay, normally that would be make use of rubber. So rubber that would be a very useful raw material, okay. So for human, remember that is not plastic. This is rubber, and rubber actually that is grown from the tree. So therefore, that would be the first example. And then the second examples, okay, that is also common, okay. So for human being, for example, like the clothes, okay, cotton, okay, cotton. Remember that is grown from a tree, okay. So from the vegetation. And then the next one that is also very important, okay, palm oil. So actually, we may also get some oil from vegetation, and that could be very important for human, especially in the future. For example, in the previous year in S1, you should have learned like the scramble for energy. So I hope you still remember you have learned like the biofuel. Okay, so you have learned biofuel, you have learned biodiesel. Okay, so one of it, like the biofuel, actually we may get some oil. Okay, so from the vegetation, then we can have more food. So therefore, that would be about some examples, okay, of the raw. We can get the raw materials from farming for the industry. Okay, then next here. Okay, what is a farming system? So I would say for this part, please mark a star for this part. Okay, please mark a star for this part. This is very important. So for farming, we can regard this as like a system. So what would be a system? System, okay, there it should be like the inputs, process, and also output. So you may learn the similar concept of system in like computer literacy. So for farming, I would say for the layout, for the framework, okay, for farming, that is also similar. So it could be regarded as a system. So there should be the input, process, and also output. And also there must be like feedback. Feedback. It refers to the things that are put back into the system. Okay, so let's have a look. What would be like a farming system? Okay, first for the input, uh, for input, we may divide the input into two type of input. The first one, physical input. Okay, physical input, it means like the material, like the particles that would be from a natural environment, from the nature. So therefore, the physical inputs for farming normally that would be like sunlight. Okay, so without sunlight, so the plant cannot carry out photosynthesis, it cannot grow. Rainwater, okay, so water for irrigation. Okay, air temperature. So you should know that the plant must be grown at a certain temperature. If it is too cold, okay, so the plant cannot live or cannot grow. Fat land, okay, so Miss Mark, fat land, it is also important. It is also important for farming. Why? It is because the crops or the plants normally it would be quite difficult for them to grow on a slope. So therefore, fat land, okay, so it is also important. And then like the seed, okay, like the seed, and also the soil nutrients. So that is all from the natural environment. So therefore, we call it physical input. Then the second one, cultural input. Cultural input, it means the input that is provided by the farmer or provided by the human. In the farming system, of course, that would be like the farmer. And then what are the cultural input in the farming system? Like labor. Okay, so that would be farmer. Capital. So it is because the farmer need the money, need capital to purchase some tools, purchase the seed, okay, to purchase some instruments, okay, to purchase other material for farming. That's right, capital. It is also important. Then for other human cultural inputs, pesticide pesticide 殺蟲藥啦。As pests that could be like some unwanted objects. Okay, so for the farming system, so therefore the farmer need to use the pesticide to kill the pests. And then fertilizer. Sometimes the land cannot provide much or provide sufficient nutrients to the crops, so therefore the farmer need to provide supplementary nutrients, okay, to the crops. So that would be like the fertilizer. And then at last, of course, machines. Okay, so just now I've mentioned some tools. Okay, all this that would be the cultural input. So when we put all these materials, all these particles to the farming activities. So what would be some examples of the farming process? There will be the four major farming process. Okay, we should know, we should mark. Okay, the first one that is before we really grow the crops. Okay, we need to plow. Okay, we have to plow the land. Why? It is because like plowing, okay, we can make the soil make the land to become loose. So therefore it can improve the drainage. OK， the drainage 可以改善嗰個嘅土地嗰個排水啦 drainage. So therefore before farming, so the farmer must plow the land, that is to improve the quality of the soil or improve the drainage, okay, of the soil. So therefore the first activities that would be like plow. And then the second one, okay, sowing. Sowing, it means, okay, we put some seed into the soil, okay. So these are the seed. And then irrigating. So we provide water, okay, for the crops, okay. And also last, okay, harvesting. So when the crops grow well, okay, so the farmer can do the harvesting. So that would be the major farming process. Okay, so we should note. However, is there any other farming process? Of course, yes. For example, putting the pesticide, okay, weedicide, or even fertilize the crops. Okay, so all this we can also call it like farming process. But these four, that would be the major farming process. And then after harvesting, so we have the output. So that would be like the farm produce. Okay, just now we have mentioned the example of the farm produce, like the vegetables, like the meat, like the raw materials. Okay, but when we talk about like the output, so for farming, there would be also some unwanted waste. For example, some excessive fertilizer or the waste from the animals. All this that would be unwanted waste. So all this unwanted waste, so normally that would lead to water pollution. Water pollution. Okay, so what would be the next? What would be the next? Okay, so the output. It could be also become like the food for farmers. Food for farmers. Okay, or it could be sold at the market. It could be sold at the market. If the farmer sold the farm produce in the market, they may get the cash back. Okay, and those cash, it would be like a feedback. Okay, so for a farming process, because for the farming process as a like a cultural input, okay, so the farmer need capital. So therefore, that would be like the major flow of a farming system. Okay, so remember this is important. Okay, so for farming system. Okay, then here that would be about some paragraph. Okay, so for the farming systems, so actually we have already finished like the input process and then output. Okay, so we can talk about more for output. So for the outputs for farming, okay, just now we have mentioned like the farm produce include like the crops, livestock, and their produce such as egg, milk, hide, etc. It means like the skin of the animal, especially for the crowd, okay, the height, so that would be important. Okay, some unwanted outputs such as like pollutants we have just mentioned or crop residuals. So what is like crops residuals? So that would be about some useless part of the crops. Okay, so that would be the crop residuals. Why? It is because for the whole objects of the crops, okay, so you may know that not the not the whole part would be sold, would be consumed, would be needed, would be demanded by the people. So therefore, that would be about some useless parts, such as like the leaves. Okay, that's why that would be like the crop residuals. Okay, then next. So what do farmer do with the farm produce? Okay, so that would be very simple. Just now we would say that so the farmer may consume the farm produce as food, okay, as their major food, or sometimes they may sell them in the market. They may sell them in the market. So they cash the money gained back. Okay, so it could be used as the feedback for them to purchase more tools such as like machines or fertilizer or even to buy more seed. Okay, so money is a feedback, okay, for the system. Okay, so therefore that would be about the major part of the farming system. Then next, we're going to Mr. Lee is going to introduce like what type of farming activities, okay, so are practiced in different part of the world. So that would be like different examples, okay, so of the farming system in the world. The first one, the first one that is also very famous. This is very famous, okay, especially in Netherlands, in Europe. So that is not called like market gardening, okay, market gardening, 園藝農業啦，園藝農業啦。So what was like market gardening? Okay, so the major output of market gardening, so that would be some flowers and vegetables. Okay, so those farms normally that would be small, and greenhouse and computer are commonly used. Okay, and the products are normally for sale. Why? It is because those projects, those farm projects normally, like the flowers, normally the value that is quite high. Okay, so therefore the farmer that can gain a relatively high level of income, and that is like market gardening. So to grow high value flowers and also vegetables. Okay, so one of the famous examples in the world that would be like in Netherlands. Okay, for example, the most famous flowers like in Netherlands that would be the triples, what cam hương啦. Okay, so that is very expensive, and also I would say it's like most not all, most farming like in Hong Kong right now, that is also like market gardening. Why? It is because most farm in Hong Kong, so they would focus, the farmers would focus on especially like vegetables. Okay, vegetables. So therefore that would be the first one. Okay, then the second one, the second example of farming. So B, okay, so that would be like the rice cultivation, as rice that would be the major staple food for Asia. So therefore the farmer in Southeast Asia, such as like in Thailand, okay, so they will still use the traditional farming method to grow rice. Okay, again, so the rice, the size of the farm that is also that is usually small. For example, in picture B here, okay, so that is one of the example of rice cultivation, and I have always mentioned that that could be like the rice paddy. Okay, 呢水稻啦，水稻啦。Okay, then C, wheat sheep farming, wheat sheep farming in Southeast Australia. 澳洲嘅 wheat sheep farming. Okay, so what would be like wheat sheep farming? So in the farm, in the same farm, okay, so farmer would grow wheat and also grow wheat and rear sheep on the same farm. Okay, they use some modern farming technology. So what? So that could be uh like a rotation, okay, or rationing, we call it. After harvest the wheat, okay, the part of the wheat plant left is used to feed the sheep. Okay, so therefore the farm produce that would be like wool and mutton. OK，一啲嘅羊毛啦，甚至乎羊肉啦，同埋一啲嘅小麥啦。So that would be also like the farm produce of the wheat sheep farming. Wheat sheep farming, we may also call it that is like a kind of mixed farming. Mixed farming. Why? It is because in the wheat sheep farming, we can see both the growing crops and also livestock rearing. Okay, crops growing and livestock rearing. So therefore, we may also call it like mixed farming. Okay, then the next one, D. Okay, in New Zealand, so that would be the daily farming. So the daily farming, so that would be for milk. Milk, that would be the major project farm projects. Okay, it's from the daily farming. So what would be the function? What would be the use of milk? Okay, so it could be used to make like cheese or butter. Okay, normally, so for the size of the farm, daily farm, so that would be large, and machines would be used. Okay, machine would be often used. Okay, for example, for milking, so they won't do the milking by the labor one by one. No, they would use machines. Okay, for milking. Okay, then next, livestock rearing in Argentina. Okay, so like in the South America, so people rear cattle 一啲嘅牛啦 for meat, milk and hide. Okay, so this type of farming that is normally found on a large area of grassland. Okay, so that is livestock rearing, especially in Argentina or like Brazil in South America. This one, that is what we call like cattle ranching. Okay, cattle ranching. So that is the name of the livestock rearing. Okay, cattle ranching. Okay, then the last one, the wheat farming. The wheat farming in the central USA. Okay, so in Asia, rice is a major staple food. Okay, for the people, and then in the Western country, wheat. So that would be the important staple food. Okay, why? Because wheat could be used as like to produce bread, noodle, or cake. Okay, so therefore in USA, wheat is the often grown on large farm. So please highlight the word large farm. Okay, large farm machines. Okay, you can see that. So that is, if I remember correct, it should be a harvester. Okay, so that is a big harvester. So therefore, that would be about some example of the farming activities in the world. Okay, so right now, we're going to talk about then what are the major type of farming. Just now we talk about the example of farming activities, but if we talk about like farming, if we study farming, we need to classify. 我哋要將佢去到分類. We need to classify different farming activities. So therefore, that would be a classification. So I would say also for table 1, this is also important. It is because we need to classify the different type of farming. Okay, the first one, we would classify, okay, the farming by the criteria of the amount of input per unit of land. Amount of input per unit of land. So I would say it could be a little bit difficult for you to understand. Okay, so it is because if you see the words, it seems that we need to do the calculation. Do we? No, we don't really do the calculation. We just identify or we classify this just in a like in relative. What does that mean? Okay, first, there will be two type of farming. Okay, so that would be the conclude by the amount of the input per unit of land. So we may call it intensive farming and extensive farming. So what are these? Would be the name of this farming type? Intensive farming, we call it 集約式農業啦。You may not know, you may not understand what is it. And extensive farming, 粗放式. Okay, so actually the Chinese name doesn't really help. So therefore, what is like the intensive and extensive farming system? For intensive farming, okay, please highlight. So normally the inputs, the level of inputs are high per unit of land. Normally, the inputs compare to extensive farming. Okay, the inputs per unit of land, it is normally high. What does that mean? That is in a like at the same area of the land. Okay, so the amount of input. So normally that would be high. So what would be like the input, such as the labor, the machine or capital, etc. So the input that would be high. And then comparatively, okay, if we do the comparison, the farms are normally small. The farm are normally small. So therefore, what would be the examples? Okay, so from the previous page, okay, previous page. So I would say that would be A, market gardening. Market gardening. If you look at like market gardening here, okay, market gardening, you can see that. So normally the farm size that is relatively small, but you can see that the input that is very high. Why? Because people would use like greenhouse or sometimes computer to take care those farm produce, those flowers, those vegetables. So therefore the input per unit of land, so that is high. And then the second one, for the rice cultivation, okay, the rice cultivation, it is also an intensive farming. It is because, okay, so normally the farm size that is small, the farm size that is small, and then another, so the input per unit of land that is high, especially for B, the labor, especially. Okay, so for the case of rice cultivations, so the input of labor, okay, so that would be high. So that's why we may call it like intensive farming. Okay. On the other hand, so what would be extensive farming? Extensive farming, that is the input, okay, so per unit of land that would be low, okay. Comparatively, so the farm size would be large. So therefore, okay, let's have a look about the examples. Just now we can see that like C, D, E, and also F. That would be the example of extensive farming. Okay, so what would be the comparison? Okay, so I would use this. Okay, as an example. Like we can see, okay, activities B. So in this area, in this small farm, so how many labor we can see that? Six. Okay, six labor. So they're working. Okay, so for the rice cultivation. So that would be just that is in a small farm, six labor here. But you may compare to the next one. C. Can you see any labor? Okay. I can't see. I can't see. Or maybe they're not working. But what about this? What about this? For the livestock rearing. For the livestock rearing. Okay. So first you can see. So the farm size that is extremely large. Okay, on the grassland. But how many labors are there? Yes, I can count here. One, two, and three. Just three labor. But compare to the farm size in the rice cultivation. So this one that is much larger. So therefore, the input unit per unit of land in this case that would be very low. That's why we may call it this is an extensive farming. And also, and also the wheat farm, okay, in the central USA. So you can see the wheat farm actually that is very large. But how many labor that is really working? Okay, just one. Okay, with the harvester. So therefore, compared to the farm size, so the input that would be low. That's why F that is also like an extensive farming. Okay, so therefore that would be the first type of classification: intensive farming and extensive farming. Then the second one, so we would do the classification according to the type of output. So this one that is relatively easy. Okay, why? Because just we just talk about like the output. So therefore, the first type of farming we may call it arable farming. Arable farming 一啲嘅耕作農業啦。So therefore, arable farming. So the major output that would be like the crops. So therefore, okay, so from the previous 6 farming activities, like market gardening, the first one, market gardening, so that would be the arable farming. It is because they farm produce, the output that would be like the flowers and also vegetables. And then the second one, okay, so the rice cultivation, okay, so the farm produce would be rice. And then F, the wheat cultivation, the wheat farming in USA also, so wheat would be the crops, okay, so therefore that would be arable farming. Then the second one, pastoral farming. Pastoral farming we call it 畜牧業啦. That would be measure of the rearing of livestock. Okay, if we see the livestock, we may call it pastoral farming. So therefore, in the 6 activities, okay, so so the daily farming, okay, so that would be the pastoral farming, and also E, okay, so the livestock rearing in Argentina, okay, so the cattle ranching, so that is also a type of pastoral farming. Okay, so mainly for livestock, the rearing of livestock. And then the last one, I have already introduced this to you. So mixed farming. For mixed farming, there must be the growing of crops and also rearing of livestock at the same time. So that's why the wheat sheep farming, okay, the wheat sheep farming, okay, so that is what we call like a mixed farming. Okay, so that would be the second classification. And then the third classification, okay, we would classify the farming according to the use of output. Okay, use of output. So how do the farmer use the, no, not we, how do the farmer, okay, use the output? Okay, the first one, that is what we call the subsistence farming. Subsistence farming in Chinese we call it 自給農業啦. So if the farmer, they consume their farm products by themselves, okay, farm product is used for food for farmer and his family, then we would call this subsistence farming. So therefore, in the 6 examples, so what could be like the subsistence farming? The rice cultivation. Okay, rice cultivation. Then the second one, commercial farming. That is when the farmer sold the farm produce in the market, then we call it commercial farming. So therefore, what were the examples? Okay, like A, C, okay, market gardening, the wheat sheep farming, so the daily farming, the livestock rearing, and also the wheat farming. So all these we can call it commercial farming. Okay, so I think that is not difficult. And then the last one. So what would be the classification? So we may classify the farming so by the level of technology, by the level of technology. Okay, so the first example that is high technology farming. High technology farming. So the farmer would use some modern and advanced farming technology such as like biotechnology. Biotechnology. So have you heard about like a term we may call it like GM food? Okay, genetically modified food. So if the farmer that grows some products that is genetically modified, okay, so it means that the farmer may apply like the modern or advanced farming technologies, okay, so that is a high technology farming. And also, so if the farmer relied on machine, oops, rely on machines or use lot of fuel to run the farm. Fuel, what does that mean? What does that mean? Okay, it could be like electricity or fuel. It means like oil or fuel. Okay, for machine, for the machineries. Okay, it means energy. If they need to use like the computer, use like the airplanes, okay, for putting the fertilizer or even like pesticides, use the harvester like this. So the harvester or some machines, okay, for milking. So it means that that would be a high technology farming, high technology farming. So therefore, high technology farming so include like a market gardening, wish farming, daily farming, and also wheat farming. Wheat farming. On the other hand, on the other hand, so it should be like the low technology farming. So what would be the technology? So the farmer would use, they would apply some simple and traditional farming method. So relied on animals and human power to work, to do the farm work, such as like this. Here, traditional farming technology. So human power, so that is mainly the labor. And then for livestock rearing, okay, you can see. So they're riding on a horse. They're riding a horse. They use not the machine, but the animal to help their farming activities. So therefore, that is also what we call like low technology farming. So therefore, the example of low technology farming. So it would be like the rice cultivation and also the livestock rearing in Argentina. Okay, so therefore all this one, okay, so by the criteria of amount of input per unit of land, the second one, type of outputs, the third one, use of output, and the last one, by the level of technology. So we can have four different classification of farming activities. Okay, so therefore that's it about the unit 3.2. And then you can see that so there will be also like an exercise. Let's explore 3.3. So let's explore 3.3. So that would be your homework. Okay, so please finish this exercise and also the unit summary. The unit summary. Okay, so we will check the answer later. We'll check the answer later. So therefore, this is about unit 3.2. Okay, so how do we farm? So if you have any questions, okay, so you may email me or you may give a message on the WhatsApp. Okay, I will answer it as soon as possible. So next time, after we talk about the basic farming activities in the world, next time we're going to talk about like the farming activities in mainland China. In mainland China, what type of farming activities that is really carried out in the mainland China? Okay, so therefore, so that would be the lessons for today. Okay, so if you have any questions, okay, please ask. Okay, I will answer it as soon as possible. Okay, so this is the end of today's lesson. So I will see you soon. Goodbye.